When God's people respond with generosity, real lives are changed and doors open for hope that lasts. Hi, I'm Rob West. You've heard about the devastating crisis in Lebanon and how families have been displaced by the ongoing war. Today, we're coming back to that story because while much has been done, the need remains urgent. May-Lee Melki joins us to share what your generosity has already made possible and the opportunity still before us. Then it's on to your calls at 800-525-7000. This is Faith and Finance, biblical wisdom for your financial decisions. Joining us again today is May-Lee Melki, the U.S. Managing Director of Heart for Lebanon. Over the past few months, May-Lee and her father, Camille, have been helping us understand the challenges facing families in Lebanon and how the local church is responding with both compassion and the hope of Christ. May-Lee, what a pleasure to have you back with us.
Thank you so much, Rob. It's so exciting to have this conversation again.
May-Lee, over the past few months, we've been discussing the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Lebanon, and sadly, the situation has only grown more difficult. As the war continues, many families are being forced from their homes and communities already under tremendous strain, and they're being pushed even closer to the breaking point. Yes. I want you to help us understand what you and the team at Heart for Lebanon are seeing on the ground right now.
Rob, while there was an agreed-upon 45-day extension of a very already fragile ceasefire that somewhat helped reduce active conflict in some areas and offered brief moments of relief in many communities, the reality remains very deeply fragile across the country. Families are beginning to experience different effects of the ongoing war, instability, and repeated disruption. There's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of uncertainty carrying emotional and practical burdens of the displacement, of loss, of trauma. And for many, this ceasefire has not meant true peace. So they're still navigating food insecurity, damaged infrastructures, interrupted livelihoods, and a constant fear that conditions could worsen as they have been without any warning at any time. So the need before us is urgent, not only from a humanitarian standpoint, but from a deeply relational, emotional, and spiritual standpoint.
Yes, well, thank you for that update. Our heart breaks over the situation there. I also want to pause and say thank you to our listeners in particular. The Faith Five family has responded with remarkable generosity. Our original goal was to help 275 displaced families in Lebanon, and by God's grace, that goal has now been met, and we are so thrilled.
Amen.
May-Lee, from your perspective, what has that generosity made possible for these families?
275 families, Rob, that's over 1,000 people, 1,000 individuals because of our listeners who are receiving life-sustaining support. And it includes food, mattresses, blankets, hygiene kits, diapers for adults and children, and for newborns who are being born into this world through this war. But even more than that, it has allowed us to walk alongside families consistently, not just in a brief moment of crisis. Families like Ibrahim's family, who's a 6-year-old boy whose parents had to make a very, very difficult decision to carry their kids in the middle of the night as violence was at its peak and just kind of run into the unknown. Ibrahim and his family were on the receiving end of this outpouring of blessing through our partnership. And we were able to get in contact with him last week. I'll just say this briefly. His mom told us, please don't stop your children activities. Even throughout the war, I know it's very hard. Ibrahim's favorite Bible story is when Jesus fed the 5,000. And for him, it's because he is feeling like he's experiencing that tangible and meaningful help today. And he told us over the phone, Jesus loves us, and I know he will not let us go hungry. So thank you so much for making that a reality for Ibrahim. It's such a powerful testimony of God's provision through his people across the world.
Oh, wow. That is incredible. And folks, we are so thankful for the outpouring of support for these 275 families, the more than 1,000 people that have not only received practical and much needed assistance with mattresses and hygiene kits and food, but also the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, more people need to be reached with this help, and every $90 given is going to provide a full month of care for a displaced family meeting these critical physical needs and allowing Heart for Lebanon to continue building relationships with those they serve. So if you want to help us continue to reach more people, just text the word faith to 98656 or go to faithfi.com/Lebanon. Back with May-Lee right after this break. Stick around. You've heard about the devastating crisis in Lebanon and how families have been displaced by the ongoing war. And you've also been stepping in the gap through our partnership with Heart for Lebanon to reach those folks with much needed critical resources, mattresses and food and hygiene kits, and the gospel of Jesus Christ, as the team of Heart for Lebanon is on the ground in that region, helping and meeting those needs right now. Joining me today is May-Lee Melki, the U.S. Managing Director of Heart for Lebanon, and she just shared some exciting news that our goal of 275 families representing more than 1,000 people reached has been met, and that's been met by you, and we are so grateful. But the need remains urgent, and we want to, throughout this month, over the next week, reach even more people, and we can do that with your help. Every $90 given reaches a family with critical help and support, and also the gospel of Jesus Christ. If you want to be a part of that, go right now to faithfi.com/Lebanon. Now, May-Lee, I want to give just a bit of a more complete picture about the ministry that is going on right there on the ground. You're building trusted relationships with these families. At the same time, you're meeting the immediate physical needs, and that's opening the door to deeper conversations, even long-term care, and of course, the hope of the gospel. So give us a picture of what that looks like on the ground.
You know, as the reality of the matter on the ground is at most fear, just in the last 24 hours, the Lebanese army urged families not to return to their homes because of sudden eruptions of continued violence. What we are seeing is beginning through meeting their urgent physical needs wherever they are, in a shelter, in a makeshift tent settlement, giving food, bedding, hygiene supplies that remain and maintain their dignity and their ability to survive. It is opening the door wide open for us to be there permanently and to be present with them in trusted relationships. Remember, our team is not going in and out. We are staying there. We're carrying that burden with them as they are journeying through this, kind of open-ended period of displacement. From there, those relationships turn into an opportunity for just sharing the hope of Christ. And I'm just going to give you an example of Najwa. Najwa actually came to us. We met her through this war, and all she thought, she told us that I was going to, find food for my family to survive.
Yeah.
But what I have found over the last 2 months was that my heart had been longing for something that I didn't even realize, and that's spiritual nourishment that I didn't know even existed through a God that you tell me about. God has used your ministry, she says, to remind me that I am not forgotten. And this is how Najwa came to Jesus, in a very personal way, but it took time, Rob. It was not just, here, take this package, right? It was hours of just getting to know her, who she is, as who she was created to be, and getting to understand her needs and getting to take Jesus and his gospel and his word deeply into her life.
May-Lee, that's incredible. I appreciate you sharing that story, because that's what we're praying for, that in the midst of this hardship and uncertainty, that God would be at work. Clearly he is, and he's using your team right in the center of it. May-Lee, how are people responding as they encounter the hope of the gospel through Heart for Lebanon's ministry?
It's true that we say in times of crisis, hearts are often open, or more open, I should say, than ever before. But what really points them to Jesus is not just the immediacy, but it is the authenticity and the long-term relationship that they're received with. It's the authenticity that the team shows, and that we genuinely care unconditionally, not because of your background, or not because of where you come from, or not because of who you were before Christ, but who we think you are in Christ. Yes. And what we know to be true is that our team and every single team member on the ground is a local serving another local who's in many cases experiencing the same hardships. All of our team in Southern Lebanon was displaced themselves and continue to serve. So this shared experience, brings people together in a unique way. And it gives those who are a little bit skeptical about the faith trust that we're not going to leave them anytime soon. And that's how we're seeing families come to Bible studies in record high numbers, asking questions about faith and seeking spiritual truths. Nawal, for example, a single mom with 4 kids, said even during the war, someone was still thinking about us. And this is why I can now visualize and understand in a meaningful and a tangible way what the deep love of this Jesus you talk about is. He's with me even in my darkest hour. That is the opportunity for the gospel that we have. That's the openness that we're seeing, the openness for us to model the gospel in action through this ongoing crisis.
May-Lee, that's incredible. Now, we have an audio clip straight from Lebanon featuring Freddie, one of your on-site leaders, along with a child whose life has been deeply affected by the ravages of war. Yeah. Let's listen to that clip for a moment.
I very much miss my home.
Right now, thousands of children in Lebanon are living in the shadows of war. These hallways, once meant for lessons, are now shelters. But for the children here, they are also places of deep confusion and loss. They've seen things no child should ever witness.
We had just left the supermarket, and then we saw the bombing from the missiles. The rocks fell on us.
At Heart for Lebanon, our mission is to transform these crowded spaces into a safe space. When the world feels like it's shaking, we provide hope. Through trauma-informed play, art, and the simple act of listening, we help them process their fear. We are here to show them that while they have lost their homes, they have not been forgotten. Our goal is to replace their anxiety with the peace of Christ, turning their stories of survival into stories of hope. Because every child deserves to feel safe, and every heart in Lebanon deserves to know they are loved.
I just hope one day we can go home.
Wow. Boy, that story is heartbreaking, and yet we are grateful that you all are there, May-Lee. Your team is meeting real needs, and not just physical needs. You're caring for the whole person with dignity and compassion and the hope of Christ. Why is that holistic approach so important?
Because we want to see the permanency of their soul for eternity, one for Christ. And that has to go beyond one-time aid. That's where true lasting change comes through a relationship with us, and an utmost one that points towards Jesus. Meeting their tangible needs is very important. It does restore their dignity, but it's just a vehicle to build trust and create these relationships that will flourish for the kingdom.
Well, we are so grateful for all the Lord has already made possible through this partnership, but we recognize, May-Lee, that the need is still tremendous. Help us understand as we close today what it will take to continue caring for these families and even expand that support.
Absolutely. We've made a commitment to continue supporting these 275 families on an ongoing basis. That means monthly care of the same items of food and bedding, hygiene supplies, but most importantly, a relational support, one that requires continued partnerships from believers who want to be part of this work, something far greater than us.
Incredible. Folks, because of your generosity, more than 275 displaced families are already receiving care. We praise God for that, but the need remains great. Every $90 given helps provide a full month of care for a displaced family and the gospel. Go to faithfi.com/Lebanon or send the word faith to 98656. Your calls are next at 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000. I'm Rob West, and this is Faith and Finance, biblical wisdom for your financial journey. We'll be right back.
The opinions offered during this program represent the personal or professional opinions of the participants given for informational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to replace advice from a financial, medical, legal, or other professional who understands your specific situation.
Thanks for joining us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. Well, in just a minute, we'll begin taking your calls and questions. The number to call, 800-525-7000. Again, that's 800-525-7000. We'd love to hear from you today, help you think about applying God's wisdom to your financial decisions. That's what we do here on this program. We understand that God owns it all. We're stewards, and God's Word has wise principles that apply to every decision we can make. As we spend, because we need to spend less than we earn, we need to live within God's provision. As we pay down debt, because debt mortgages the future, it changes the relationship. The borrower is servant to the lender. So we need to be careful there about when and how we borrow. We need to set long-term goals, because the longer term our perspective, the better the decision we make today. When we save, we build margin so we can fund those longer-term priorities. And that's really key, because margin is what allows us to have something beyond this month's expenses to be able to give more, to be able to invest, to be able to build our emergency fund. And then we give generously, because giving breaks the grip of money over our lives. It allows us to participate in God's activity. We do it as a response, as an act of worship and a response to the grace, the unmerited favor extended to us. And it's a privilege, and joy comes with it, because in our giving, we get to participate in God's activities. So as we apply these principles to the specific situations you're dealing with, we want to journey with you, be a source of hope and encouragement to you, but ultimately point you back to God's Word. So if you have a question today, something you're wrestling with in your financial life, call right now, 800-525-7000. Let's dive in. We're going to begin in Ohio today. Jenny, go ahead.
Hi, Rob. Good afternoon, and thanks for all your knowledge and wisdom that you share.
Thank you.
I wanted to call to find out, my husband and I, we've accumulated, unfortunately, we're no longer accumulating it, but we have this accumulation of about $50,000 in credit card debt. It's dispersed over 11 cards. They have varying interest rates on them. And I've heard that one of the models to try to get this paid down, quickly is you take the smaller balances and pay them off first, and then take the money you would have paid towards that credit card, put it towards the next one. The problem I have when I look at it, so we pay about $1,500 a month in payments. $800 of that is interest, which kills me. Yeah. So I say, hey, I wonder if it would behoove us to go ahead and pay those ones that have the higher interest rate. Yeah. I don't know. So I thought, why don't I call and get some knowledge from someone who knows better, right?
Yeah.
In the abundance of counsel, there's wisdom. So
absolutely.
Here I am asking for some advice.
Good. Well, I'm glad you called. I'd be happy to help. And I have some thoughts on maybe a specific path forward from here. But let me first address the question that you asked about the method. So there really are two popular payoff methods, and they each have a name. One is called the snowball method, and that's precisely what you suggested, where you pay the minimums on all the cards. You put every extra dollar toward the smallest balance, not the highest interest rate. And then once that first card, the smallest balance card, is paid off, you roll from 11 cards down to the next one in line, the next smallest, and then you just keep going until you eventually pay them all off. Now, why would you prioritize the smallest balance and not the highest interest rate? Because to your point, the biggest, quote, bang for your buck, if you will, is eliminating that high interest debt, because that's costing you more every month. The advantage is psychological. The studies say, and they've looked at this extensively, that when you get some quick wins and build momentum, you're more willing to stick with it and even continue to sacrifice in the short term so you can generate more money to go toward principal reduction, to the extent that means cutting or eliminating things in your budget, making hard choices like, eating in versus eating out, and maybe canceling subscriptions, or maybe even some bigger ticket items. Your ability to go from 11 cards to 10 down to 9, and you're tearing these things up and you're seeing yourself make real progress, is essential to you not only sticking with it, but continuing to make the sacrifices along the way. The second approach is called the avalanche method, and it's where you again pay the minimums on the cards, but you put every dollar that's extra beyond the minimums toward the highest interest rate. And to your point, mathematically, that saves you the most money. The problem is that if that highest rate card also has a large balance, it may take you a long time before you see progress, and you may give up on it or just not put the energy into it. That's what the research says, and that's why people promote that. So that's at least the explanation. Now, where would I go from here? Well, I think the key is for you all to do some hard work on that budget first, because the extent to which that $50K is a result of lifestyle spending beyond your means, we've got to get to a place where, you're no longer accumulating any more debt. We've got a spending plan that's realistic, that we're sticking to it. We've demonstrated we can do that over time. That's really the most important piece. The second piece is, rather than doing snowball or avalanche, I'd go with a third option, and that is credit counseling. And essentially, by working through a credit counseling agency, and we happen to use Christian credit counselors, you're going to get those interest rates down from an average of 22 down to somewhere between 0 and 10. You're going to send one monthly payment to Christian credit counselors. They're going to send it to the 11 cards, but the combination of that level payment doesn't change until they're all paid off, and the lower interest rate, you're going to pay it back on average 80% faster. Thousands of our listeners have used it very effectively, and they love it. So let's do this. When we come back from the break, I want to get your thoughts on all that, answer any questions you have. I also want to offer you the help of a certified Christian financial counselor with the budget. We're going to pay for it. Stay right there. We'll talk about it after the break. So glad to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. Before the break, we were talking to Jenny in Ohio. She and her husband have $50,000 in credit card debt. She was wondering the best method to pay those off. Jenny, I unpacked a bit about the snowball versus the avalanche method, and then the importance of right-sizing the budget. Finally, my recommendation on using Christian credit counselors to get those interest rates down and pay this off hopefully a lot faster with much less interest. But give me your thoughts and any follow-up questions on all that.
Okay. I had considered, I didn't want to stay playing in the same playground, if you will, but something had crossed my mind because, you hear about it all the time. They have credit cards with an introductory rate, do a balance transfer, therefore the rate's lower, pay that off. But again, I felt like I just want to get us out of this debt as quickly as possible. And I don't want to, somebody had mentioned bankruptcy. I said, look, we accumulated the debt. We're no longer accumulating it. My husband had lost his job. We used it for a time. That's pretty much what got us where we're at for the most part. Some unwise spending for sure, but for the most part, that's what opened that door up to us. And I don't want to hurt our credit because in time, if we need the credit, not that I want it to be as a credit card, but like if we needed a loan for something, thank the Lord, our house is paid off. We don't have to worry about that. Our vehicles, we drive older vehicles, so we don't have to worry about car payments. I want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, paying what we owe, but yet not accumulating. That interest is absolutely killing us.
Yeah, no, I get that. Listen, I totally understand. And, I can understand the idea behind a balance transfer, especially at 0%. That can be pretty enticing. There's several reasons I'm cautious about that. And I certainly concur with you about avoiding bankruptcy at all cost. Number one, you may not qualify. So someone carrying $50,000 across 11 cards already likely has a high credit utilization, maybe, a lower credit score, certainly significant existing debt. And so you may not qualify for those really attractive rates that are being marketed. Those also expire. So usually they only last 12 to 21 months. And, if the debt isn't paid off before the promotion ends, the remaining balance often reverts to a very high interest rate. There's generally a balance transfer fee. So most cards charge 3 to 5% up front. And so, 3% on $50,000 is $1,500, could be as much as $2,500. That's not insignificant. And it doesn't solve the spending problem if that's what it was. I realize that may only be part of it. But I would much rather you move towards something that's sustainable for the long term, doesn't require you to have to keep up with the game, and doesn't ultimately come back to bite you. And that's really credit counseling. The good news about credit counseling, as far as your credit score, which is not my primary concern, I want you to get out of debt quickly and get on a path toward financial stability. But I will say that the fact that you're in credit counseling is not a part of the credit scoring algorithm. Now, the cards are temporarily closed, which can bring your score down somewhat because those cards are no longer in the mix in terms of the history, and you're already, being hurt by high credit utilization. But just the mere fact that you're in credit counseling is not a part of the algorithm, and so if it's hurting you, it's for other reasons, and it's going to be minor. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. And again, we've had so many people use this approach so successfully that I am just a massive fan of this strategy. But at the end of the day, you need to find what works for you. But I would at least take a look at it, see what each of the 11 creditors offer in credit counseling, because they're all going to have a different rate. But it's undoubtedly going to be significantly lower than what you're paying now.
Oh, so the credit counseling comes through the actual credit card company itself?
It does. Each credit card company has a credit counseling department, and as long as you work through a nonprofit credit counseling agency, then you can access it. You can't access it on your own, and so they set their own rates for credit counseling. And so when you contact Christian credit counselors, one of the first things they'll do, apart from helping you work through your budget, is they're going to analyze every one of your 11 creditors, tell you what your new interest rate would be, and tell you what your new monthly payment is going to be to them that they're going to distribute to your existing creditors. So it's not a consolidation loan where these things get paid off. They're going to stay right where they are. It's just going to result in a drop in the interest rate.
Oh, praise the Lord. That's what we need. Or just to get rid of the balance. That's my whole, I'm like, even if I have to pay these exorbitant fees and interest rates, I just want to pay them down and do it the smartest way.
Yeah, I totally get it. I totally get it. And I think this is really the approach you need to take. So where you want to head next is ChristianCreditCounselors.org, or you can go to faithfi.com/CCC. That's faithfi.com/CCC. And you can contact the team there. They'll get you started. They're wonderful. They're all believers. You'll really enjoy working with them. And then secondly, I'd love to get you connected if you want to. And it's up to you as to whether you guys, would want to follow through on this. But we'll connect you with a certified Christian financial counselor who would work with you remotely, like through Zoom meetings, to actually help you set up that budget, get on a good spending plan, be a source of counsel, and help you find the rhythms that are going to be sustainable for the long term in terms of keeping you on a budget once this debt's paid off.
That would be a great blessing, Rob, because I keep saying we need to start investing, not,
Yes.
Get the money paid off to the credit cards and then start investing, because I'm a little bit older. We have kiddos that we want to be able to leave something to. And, and I will say thank you so much for I've never heard of this. I just found your radio show recently. But you were talking about certified kingdom advisors. And we were looking at somebody, they offer free dinners to come and listen, right? And offer you life insurance and offer you ways to invest your money. Yeah. And it never occurred to me that they would invest the money that we would give to them in ways that were so unglorifying to God. That just struck me. So, it makes me tearful to even say I'm so thankful to found your station or your program, because I would never want to do that, not knowing, right, that I had did it, but to later find out that I supported abortion or supported the alcohol industry, whatever it would be, that would be a sinful way. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And we would really love to take advantage of the credit counseling and looking to see what would be more sustainable for us long term.
Awesome. Well, thank you for saying that. I'm so glad you did find us. And listen, it's clear in your voice, your heart's desire, you and your husband, is just to honor the Lord with what he's entrusted to you. And listen, we can all look back and say, I wish I would have done this different, or I wish I would have made that choice differently. And that's just a part of the journey. And yet, God wants to redeem every decision. We purpose our lives to serve and love him. And one of the ways we do that is through the worship of, handling his money wisely and living as a faithful steward. And so I'm confident as you set your course toward paying this back in full, honoring God in your giving and your investing in the future, and even thinking about faith-based investing, which don't be hard on yourself there. This is a new idea. Christians are just discovering that this is viable now in a way that has not been possible even just a few years ago. There's a great opportunity ahead of you here, Jenny. So thanks for being on the program. Stay on the line. Our team will get your information. We'll get you connected to Assert CFC, and we'll talk to you soon. Great to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. We're taking your calls and questions. The number to call, 800-525-7000. Let's go to Utah. Dave, how can I help?
Hey, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I got a pretty massive problem, and I'm trying to figure out how to take a very long story and be able to articulate what you need to hear. So hopefully you can give me some advice, because I am so lost right now. So real quick, I'm running a nano nutritional supplement company. And just quick on that, if you're not familiar with nano, it's a nutritional supplement form that is way more effective than what people are taking out there today in tablet or capsule form. People don't realize that the bulk of the tablets and capsules go through their digestive system and out and don't get to the cell, which is what the goal is. And so we have a process where we break it down in liquid form into nano-sized particles. That just simply means, nano is 0 to the 9th power, so very tiny. So when you take the supplements, it absorbs into the cell way more effectively. So that's kind of what I'm running. And man, I've got myself into trouble, because when I was brought on originally, I was mainly supposed to just build the operational infrastructure, which I did, and the founder and the other owners kind of abandoned me, and that left me trying to figure out how to run the company. And I believe in this product so much. I mean, our vision is to honor God by helping people live longer, healthier lives with the products that we make. And so what ended up happening real quickly is I had multiple events that caused me to be in the situation I'm in right now. The first was figuring out how to solve the abandonment piece, which cost me a lot. Then I came across a guy from Saudi Arabia that bought our product in California, flew to our facility because it was a vitamin B, said it changed his life. And I mean, literally flew to our facility, met our team, pledged $4 million for 20% of the company. You know where this is going to go, right? I mean, I even have pictures of this guy with Andre Agassi, if you're a tennis fan. So, I mean, he seemed like the real deal, but several years went by. I never got the funding. I took out bad debt, and, then I had two more incidences that really hurt me, where big orders were supposed to come through and they just never materialized. And so I made such big mistakes. I put my entire personal equity into the business, and now I find myself in trouble, and I don't know what to do. So I thought it would be a good place to pause and see if you had any specific questions that might help.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm so sorry. I hear you, and I appreciate your explanation of what you have, and really appreciate your desire to serve people through nutrition and feel like, you believe in the product, and that often can cloud our judgment in some ways, in the sense that, when it's time to walk away, if that time is here, or maybe it was in the past, and or maybe it's upcoming, because we believe in something, we might stay longer, than maybe we should. And, it may be a time to shift from how do I save the business to how do I determine whether this deserves more of my time and money. I know you've experienced, obviously many setbacks. Many weren't entirely of your own making, especially if we have an investment scam or a partner that walked away or anticipated orders. But at 61, we need to focus on what the facts are today and kind of move beyond, what has transpired in the past. If you were not already invested in this business, would you start it today?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the product is incredible, and we've made incredible product. And so, yes, I believe it's
Okay. So that's the first question. The second would be, is the business generating any positive cash flow today?
It could be, but I'm just so stuck. I'm out of working capital. I have orders. I literally have companies that are top 10 sellers on TikTok, and I can't produce their orders because I am stuck financially. And so, it's weird because it's got such potential. It's in such demand, but I'm just stuck.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I mean, the challenge is if you have no working capital and can't fulfill orders, it's really not even a sales problem. It's a business viability problem. And so, the fact that you believe in the product is important, but that alone won't keep the business operating. You've got to have that working capital. Even if the demand exists, you're unable to convert that demand into revenue. And so if there's not a realistic source of capital available that doesn't involve you taking on additional personal debt, then I think at this point, you don't need to continue borrowing personally in hopes that a future investor or a large order will rescue the business. And so I think it's time to consider winding down the operations, preserving what assets remain, if any, and really focusing on what can generate stable income elsewhere. Now, does that mean that you're walking away from this forever? No, I think you would be exercising good stewardship in light of the reality of where you find yourself, because we know it's not good stewardship for you to continue on this path. I mean, there is not a viable path today toward you pulling this business out. And because you're already, having to take from your personal situation, it's just only going to compound the problem. So I think what we do is, at the very least, you say, I'm going to set this aside for now. I'm going to go get gainful employment that's going to allow me to start to generate some income, get back up on my feet, where I'm focused on, paying my obligations, getting some good cash flow coming in. And maybe this is something you come back to down the road. But I would just say, based on everything I'm hearing today, I wouldn't put another dollar into the company unless you could see a clear, realistic path to profitability and capitalization, not just a hope that the next opportunity will come through. And I'm not hearing any of that.
Right. Well, I mean, that's a very good point. I appreciate the advice, but it's just your opinion on this. We have large orders. Like, I actually got an order for almost $1 million sitting there, but it's, I haven't gotten a deposit for it yet. We have people calling us all over the country, finding us, interested in us developing product for them. So I just want to be clear, like, when you respond, just understand that what's killed this business is the debt, not the I guess the business potential and what we're selling. All that is solid. The debt has just continually eaten me alive. So, and plus, I'm in such debt, I can't just walk away, get a job. People are after me for money. So I heard you say on the previous caller to try to avoid bankruptcy, but I don't know how to do that when people are after me right now.
Yeah. Well, and, at the end of the day, bankruptcy is legal protection. You won't find that word in the Bible. I think the key is, we have to honor our obligations. And so there needs to be an absolute commitment to repayment, but you can only do what you can do. And so if you don't have the ability to do that, the bankruptcy may afford you the legal protection that you need. But that doesn't mean that you may not in the future have the ability to come back and pay these obligations. But I think, what I'm hearing is even if you have a great product and customers who want it, at some point a business has to be evaluated based on actual cash flow, not potential. And the fact that you've got the significant debt, there's no working capital there, we can't fulfill orders, we're in a really fragile position. And so I think it's time to protect your household, to preserve your financial stability. That doesn't mean down the road, the business can't return, but I would stop additional personal borrowing. I would get with, somebody from a legal counsel standpoint who can advise you on the path forward. And let's see if we can separate the business from the personal finances and begin moving toward a place of financial stability and get some wise counsel along the way. And I realize that's not easy, especially given the journey that you've been on. And yet I think God will honor your willingness to make hard choices and be found faithful with what passes through your hands. And that's all you can do. But continuing down this road, just given the reality of where you're at, I think moves beyond wise stewardship.
Okay. And again, thank you so much for the counsel. Just one more question that I was wondering, are you totally against if there was somebody out there, a solid Christian that just had given up equity in the company rather than taking out a loan, because it wouldn't take much to get the company stable. Are there people out there in your experience that might want to hear the story of the value of what we're doing and get involved and help turn this thing around, or is that not wise?
There's so much risk in that. I'm not against outside investment, especially if there's, orders that are real and the business has genuine potential. But, equity investment is far preferable to taking on personal debt. But at the end of the day, someone who'd be willing to walk into something like this, given the history of what's happened and where you find yourself right now, they would take a massive position in it. And I just think it would be too hard of a sell. I think at this point, I would just kind of cut your losses, move on, and see if you can head toward financial stability. We appreciate your call today. We'll be praying for you, Dave. Faith and Finance Live is a partnership between Moody Radio and Faith 5. We'll see you tomorrow.